Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Little Shop of Nerds with your two lovely hosts, Mike. Hey, what's up, y'all?
And Julia.
Alright, last week we did not give a hint because this came out in the 90s, I think 1997, I do believe.
1997, yeah.
And this was a TV direct-to-TV movie starring the great Brandy. Hang on. Cinderella. Actually, Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. Meaning, this was a Roger and Hammerstein production.
Yeah. Like, I remember watching this movie as a little girl and absolutely loving it. I'm showing my age right now. I remember loving it. And I had forgotten that Whitney Houston was in this. Like, she was like executive producer for it. She was the one that pitched the idea for it. Like, she wanted this to be done.
Yeah, and I remember watching it as a kid. I remember it came on ABC, I think.
Yeah, like, I don't remember, but I remember, I definitely remember watching it a few times on TV.
Oh, yeah, I did, and I think, now this is going to be my age right here. I remember once, I think we recorded it on a VHS tape. That's how, and you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, back then we used a thing called, we're taping it.
We had VHS. They were tape. That's how you watched VHSs, which they're little blocks that you just put into a VCR, and you were able to watch movies. It was way before DVDs and way before streaming services.
Yes, and like I say, if we had a favorite show that we couldn't watch, we would have to get a blank tape, record it, and watch the next day, hoping it wasn't spoiled for you.
You know, I still have tapes with stuff recorded on them from when I was little, and I actually have a tape that has because when I was in school, I went to a tech school, and I took broadcasting and video production. And somewhere in my room, in one of those boxes, I still have my tape with all of my projects on it.
Yep, and that's cool. That's awesome.
So my portfolio is basically what it was. Because 2005, you still use the VCRs and tapes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember that. But like I said, we record our shows on tapes. So picture the first DVR ever, people.
Yeah. And, I mean, then the only downside with that was then you would get the commercials in between.
But that's when you can just fast forward to it. Yeah, you just
fast forward through the commercials and stuff like that. So, anyways, this had like a star-studded cast. It had, the singer Brandy. It had Victor Garber, Whitney Houston, Whoopi Goldberg,
Burnett Peters, and you might know. And I've been looking up her filmology. Like, we all know what Whoopi was in. The others were in. Mm-hmm. I just want to see. I guess she was in a Steve Martin movie called The Jerk, which I like. By the way, it's funny. She was also in Animaniacs. She played Rita the cat,
which I did not know that.
Me neither. And turns out she played on Anastasia as Sophie,
which is the girl that I think she was a French girl who was her name was Sophie, and she was I don't want to say anything bad about her weight, but she was the fat woman, the one that they had to go through first before they could meet the Dowager Empress. She's the one that the one guy really, really liked and would flirt with her every time they showed up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean the big dude that was voiced by Kelsey Grammer?
Yeah.
And you're like, who's the hell is Kelsey Grammer? Look up Cheers and Frasier, you'll find out who he is.
He also plays Sideshow Bob and
The
Simpsons.
Yeah. And like I said, all-star cast, and you had Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother. You had Whoopi Goldberg as the Queen. What's his name? What's his name?
Victor Garber.
Which you might know from Titanic and other.
He was also in Annie.
He was also in The Flash for a couple seasons. Then he went to the show DC's Legends of Tomorrow. But like I said, you have a bunch of people. You even had Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
I only know him. I know him I know Jason Alexander from a lot of things, but the only thing that I can really picture him in is Pretty Woman, because the part where he basically assaults Vivian at the end of Pretty Woman is all I can. That's all I can see, and that's all I can think about when I see Jason Alexander.
Well, yeah,
because to be completely honest, my mom did let me watch a lot of Pretty Woman growing up.
Well, my mom and dad let me watch RoboCop when I was little too.
Yeah. So, the music is apparently there was another one. Another Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella that was starring Julie Andrews.
You might know her from Mary Poppins.
Or
Sound of Music.
The Princess Diaries as the Queen. She did do a stint on I think it was Guiding Light. It was one of the soap operas. She did a stint on that. But anyways, let's get into what Cinderella is about. Essentially, it's basically the same. It's just
told in a little different lighting, trying to be a little
more modern,
but also look more like trying to make it more like the Grimm fairy tales, but different. Not doing the fucking
without people getting things cut off.
And pretty much it opens up in the town where Cinderella, her stepmothers, stepsisters are shopping, and they're pretty much being dicks to her. And even the one part was that they were asking about which hat is better, and Cinderella's like, I know nothing about hats, but neither of them look good on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, and then she starts singing a song about how she would like to, because she's watching some kids watching a puppet show, and it was like the prince and like a princess or something, and the prince was saying something about how he loved the princess for who she was, and so then Brandy or Cinderella started singing a song about how she hoped that she would find someone that would love her for who she was, and then they come out, they go over to another part, and then we see who is actually the prince. And he's just wandering around, just kind of... Think about how in Ever After, where the prince went down and he kind of like mingled with the common folk. So that's what he was doing, was he was going down, he was just like mingling around with them. And then he is also singing about how... He's singing the same song Cinderella is, and how he just hopes that he also could find someone that would love him and stuff like that.
And to be told, everyone, this movie is short, so
hour and a half,
like hour and 20 minutes, 7 minutes,
roughly an hour and a half.
So if you guys heard of the Roger Hammerstein Cinderella, seen it or something, it's not going to be the longest one you've seen. Maybe it just sounds like it's rushed because that's just how it was.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said...
See, the costume designs in this movie were actually
pretty good.
They were funny. Especially when it came with the stepmother and the stepsisters. Because, they had, the most, outlandish costumes ever. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Their house was even... really fairy tale like.
It pretty much looked like it was a fairy tale. You could tell it was a fairy tale.
Yeah. So anyway, back to them in the town. Cinderella almost gets ran over by a horse and carriage. And the prince sees it, and he comes over to help her, and he's all like, oh, I want to, he basically wanted to get to know her. And she's all like, oh, but I can't, and he asks her name, and she's like, it's Cinderella. And then he was like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but she goes, it's Cinderella because I like to sit by the fire and I get soot on my face and then it smudges. And he goes, oh, Cinderella. And so she, anyways, her stepmom and stepsisters come in and they,
becoming the B word.
Yeah, they come in and interrupt them. And she's like, what did I tell you about talking to strangers? And then they leave and they go back to the house. And then that's when we see the house and how fairy tale-esque it is. And
well, before they head back to the house, it was the prince when he goes back to the castle. And they do show the the castle from afar, and this is when how bad CGI was during the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, CGI has come a long way. But some of the special effects from this movie, you can definitely tell was not 70s, it was 1990s.
It was, and they go back to his castle. His mom's throwing a ball pretty much, trying to...
Which is Whoopi Goldberg, by the way.
And his dad played by Victor.
I always, I didn't think about it until just recently, when I was watching it last night. But this movie had so, the stepmother was a white woman.
No.
Hold on. Yeah. One of the stepdaughters, or one of her daughters was a white woman, and then her other daughter was a black woman. It's like, how? Which, I get it. You pick the best people that are for the job. Well... And then, in the case of the Queen and King, Whoopi Goldberg is a black woman. Victor Garber's a white man. And then...
The prince was an Asian.
Their son was Asian.
Yeah. Yeah. So, now, maybe they were trying to fight... Maybe they were trying to stand something, because, back then, mixed race couples were becoming more of a thing. But I know there was... the first race mixed couple, maybe in the 50s, or I can't remember, but I know it's a true story. They made a movie about it. But besides that,
with the thing with Cinderella's family is we could probably make the argument. Well, okay, so Cinderella was played by a black woman, so Cinderella was a black woman. So then maybe her father was probably black. Her mom was probably black. So then we can make the argument that the one woman that was, the white stepdaughter, maybe she could have been from a previous marriage, and then the other one could have been something that, or not something, but someone that the stepmother and father had, a child, that could have been their child. But we're not for sure, and we're not going to get into it. I just thought that it was kind of not funny, but maybe, for lack of a better word, kind of funny how it's just no one cared about that.
I think that was
in the 90s.
I think that was just the point. They just want to do a fun production, not care about it.
Yeah.
So I don't care about it. But anyways, they planned the ball, and
he didn't want the ball. The prince didn't want the ball.
And so what they do. His mother goes behind his back, does it anyway, so they do the little singing number, and she tells the prince's name first, and middle name is Herman. Herman?
Yeah. It's a really, really long name. And so, Jason Alexander is speaking in, some sort of accent, too.
I think French accent,
Yeah, and he goes out and he's dancing, and with this being the 90s, he's probably a lot younger. He's probably a lot younger than he is now. Obviously.
I think I heard he did some Broadway productions too.
Yeah. So, but he's up there, he's dancing and stuff like that,
having fun.
And you can definitely tell there's a scene with a cake where they have this big cake. You can definitely tell that cake's fake.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Definitely tell that it's fake. But, the way that he was just dancing around, I'm just man, you just...
Yep.
I couldn't even do that.
No, yeah, and they did the whole thing. the stepmother thought, oh, good opportunity. And, they go back home and try to, and pretty much telling Cinderella her father's dead, just get over it. But, she knows he's not dead in her heart. She goes, sings a song about, because she likes to read and everything. Imagine that she's not in.
She likes to daydream, basically.
Yeah, and about her little chair and realizing she just.
It's that space is her space, and she can be whatever she wants in that space.
And pretty much, they go back to the castle. The prince is mad, but he makes a deal. Like, Alexander had the idea. It's like, I may not be the one to should give my opinion. And they're like, yeah, you shouldn't. But they said, well, what about this? The prince has the ball. The mother's like, oh, but if he doesn't fall in love, they shouldn't be doing no more balls.
Yeah. He wanted to fall in love on his own terms, which I think at this point he already had feelings for Cinderella, but
he didn't
really know where to find her. So,
but besides that, like I said, they're doing everything, and they go back to the mother and the stepdaughters are trying to figure out how to woo the prince. Not really doing any good, and they told her she couldn't go, and they singing about getting ready and everything, and they left, and she's mad because she wants to go. And here comes the fairy godmother,
Whitney Houston.
And if you guys have not heard of Whitney Houston, you have been under a rock for too long, or you're really young.
Yeah.
And you're gonna say, I only know a couple of songs. One song is "I Always Love You" from the movie The Bodyguard that she sang. And she had great hits. Great hits.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't familiar with Whitney Houston, she had died back in 2012.
But,
I think it was from a drug overdose, I think.
From her, was it her husband, Bobby Brown?
I'm trying to see if I can figure it out. Yeah, she did pass away. And her biggest hit was, I Will Always Love You, which was actually
a Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, Dolly Parton had actually, that was her song, but Dolly Parton just couldn't get it to catch on.
No, and that's why I'm going to have to say Whitney Houston did it better. I think it was because I think it wasn't right for her vocal range.
Yeah.
Because with Whitney Houston, she can blurt it out.
She can belt out those. Yeah, she's got that voice.
She has the voice that can belt it out. So in my opinion, listen to both of them. Like, try to listen to both of them. Put in the comments what you think, who did it better, and we go from there.
Yeah.
But besides that, they did this song called "Impossible." They pretty much did the whole, transforming the mice and the mice don't talk, so
yeah.
And they turn them into what? Horses,
footman, driver, that type of thing.
And they turned the pumpkin into a carriage that actually is the color of the pumpkin and actually looks like a pumpkin this time.
Yeah.
Even had the little stem on top of the roof.
Yeah. And then Cinderella's dress. I love Cinderella's dress in this movie. It's just really
sparkly.
It's really sparkly. It's really pretty. Now, the shoes looked plastic.
It was plastic.
Like, if you look at it, the shoes definitely do not look like that they were glass.
But don't forget, this is a TV movie.
Exactly. But
so, on a budget.
Yeah, but they could have at least done something to make it look a little bit more realistic.
But besides that,
back in the 90s, people probably weren't watching this on a big screen either, with everything enhanced. So, on the smaller screen, it probably did look like a glass slipper. But then when you're watching it on like a 4K HD TV, and you're sitting so close to the TV watching it, it definitely didn't look glass. But
and
I understand it was the 90s and they can only do so much in the 90s. But, so she goes to the ball, and they're having the prince doing the exact, like, it seems a very boring ball. Because the prince is doing the exact same dance with every single woman, every single eligible woman from the kingdom. And he eventually does get to dance with, like, the stepsisters, and he's just, like, wanting to get out of there as quickly as possible. And then I think it was, he had gone through all of the women, and then here comes Cinderella.
Yep.
And it was love at first sight, which it already was love at first sight when he saw her in the village. The day before.
Yes, and they pretty much having a good thing. You know, they're dancing and dancing with the king and the queen, asking about her mother and father, and she just couldn't answer them. And she's like, I have to go. And the fairy godmother's like, hey, why are you leaving now?
Yeah, she's like, are you just giving up? And so she does end up spending a little bit more time. They sing a song together. And
even the step-sisters were spying on them doing a little song.
Yeah, and then they fell into the water.
Which they deserve, by the way.
They fell into the fountain. And then the clock strikes midnight, of course. And there goes Cinderella. She, runs off, loses her slipper along the way. At this point, everything changed back before she had even left the courtyard, like before she left the castle. But she had managed to get out of sight before the prince saw her dressed in her regular clothes. And she ran home. And then the next day, like, the prince is talking about how he didn't sleep, how he couldn't eat because all he could think about was her. So they were going to go around to all the women and just, like, have them try on the shoe.
Yeah, and what was it before? Before that, he gives the shoe to Jason Alexander's like, what is this, a slipper made of glass? Who wants to wear glass slipper? It's really uncomfortable. I'm like, why does that make sense?
Yeah.
Why the hell does that make sense?
Yeah. So, anyways... So it shows. So she does sing a song with her stepsisters, and her stepmother, because she's like, she said something that sounded just like how the ball went, and her stepmother was like,
trying to put two and two together.
You weren't at the ball, were you? She's like, no, of course not. I'm just assuming. So then they sing a song, and then at one point, I think it was before all of this, I know at one point she had gone outside to pray to her father. And she was like, I know you told me that I needed to stay. She's like, but I can't stay here anymore. I gotta go. And so... it shows the prince in the village, and I think it's the village, anyways.
Village, yes.
It shows a line of feet, of different feet. There was a man's foot in there at one point.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny, because you see all, like, these different sizes feet, and then you see a man's feet, and then probably just trying to be, like, just trying to be funny.
But no, I kind of feel sorry for the cast and crew. Can you imagine the cast list, like, roles for women with big feet, and I'm like, imagine what they were going through their minds. I'm like, please not be a foot fetish video. Please do not be a foot fetish video.
And so it showed, like, a lot of the different feet that they had shown in a line, and then, trying to get into the slipper, and then it showed the man's foot trying to go into the slipper, and I'm just like, that's hilarious. So they do go to Cinderella's mom's, to Cinderella's house. The stepsisters try to try on the shoe, and of course it doesn't fit. The stepmother had locked the door that Cinderella was in, because Cinderella was in the kitchen packing her stuff, and she heard the lock click, but she just didn't care. And then she
ran out the back door.
She put the stepmother put the key in her bra.
That's like no offense to women out there, that's what some women actually do. They'll hide like cash in there and everything.
Please do not put your money in your bra, especially during the summer, because then you get sweaty boob money, and no one wants to touch sweaty boob money. I sure don't want to touch sweaty boob money.
I don't know. There's some freaks out there who would want to touch that.
That's gross.
I know, right?
Okay, so Cinderella did go out the door. So then the stepmother was like, well, there is one more woman here.
But
she's talking about herself. And then Jason Alexander is like, are there any young women? She goes, well, I'm young. He goes, younger than you? And, like, because she was, like, dancing with him and, like, trying to, like, flirt with him at the ball because she wanted him to, like, try to get her daughters into the royal family, basically.
And it's funny, she puts it up, the stepmother puts it on, and it says, Fitzy, and it's like, couldn't get off because of the circulation.
Yeah, it was cutting off the circulation and everything. So then finally they do get it off, and then, the prince is like, are there no other young women here? And they're like, no, and he goes, what's behind, and he notices that they were kind of like standing in front of the door, and he goes, what's behind that door? She's like, oh, nothing, just a normal kitchen with pots and pans. And he's like, can you open up the door for me? And so they do relent, and it was funny because they gave the key to Jason Alexander, and he's like, the key, madam, and she like reaches into her bra and pulls out the key and hands it to him, and he's just kind of like looking at her like, really? And so then he opens up the door, and there's no one in there. Well, they go out the door, and right there you see Cinderella almost getting ran over by the horses again, which are the same horses that almost ran over her a couple days before in the village when she first met the prince. And she tries on the shoe. You can definitely tell that that's a poorly made shoe. And then they just, her dress gets transformed into a wedding dress, and they get married, and they live happily ever after.
And Whitney Houston singing at the ending, pretty much. And it ends, and we, like she said, happily ever after. I
want to know why everybody was wearing white at the end.
I never understood that either.
Because only the bride is supposed to wear white. But, like, it seemed like a lot of the dresses that the women were wearing were, like, wedding dress types. Because some of them were also wearing veils.
Well, either way, I know some people will white if they're in the getting married in the tropics. Mm-hmm. That's because of the sun. Yeah. But besides that, I don't know. Maybe they weren't thinking at the time. Mm-hmm. But either way, hey, ends. And by the way, speaking of marriage, I can marry people.
Yeah, so if y'all want to get married and you need somebody to officiate your wedding,
and you're in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, you can only do it in the state of Ohio.
Well, I'm only licensed in the Ohio state. Either way, it's really easy. Just go find a online ordained site. You can get your certificate, and just get the license from the Ohio State Bureau or any state where you're from, and you're good.
Yeah, one of my friends currently did that. So, I'm on the Rotten Tomatoes website right now. They did give it a 86% critics did out of 7 reviews, and then out of 10,000 plus audience score, they gave it a 74%.
Well, maybe because it had that cheesy moment, but like I said, this was a direct-to-TV movie. So, yeah, they had different budgets. They can only maybe use certain songs. Why they rush it? Because they can only do a certain amount of scenes for a certain amount of time. But, I still like it. I give it a 10 out of 10.
I give it a 10 out of 10, too. I mean, it had its moments that were kind of cheesy, but, I mean, what 90s movie doesn't have their cheesy moments?
That, 80s, and some 80s that are cheesy, but yet kind of wondering if they should cancel them.
Yeah.
Like 16 Candles.
Yeah. So, anyways, that is our review of Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Next week's hint, we're back to doing hints now.
Yep.
So next week's hint is Turn Back Time. So let's see if you guys can figure that out. The movie, though, because it is a movie, the movie that we are going to be reviewing, I did not know existed until recently, and I thought it sounded pretty cool, and I pitched it to Mike, and Mike's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we'll have our review of that movie next week.
Yep.
So, anyways, see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.